Hey everyone, how's it going? As promised earlier, I'll be doing some content coverage for Fighting Walloons Online Netrunner League using my Sparring Decks. Today we'll be showcasing a CTM versus Alice game. I'll be doing commentary on the go, and I'll be trying my best to cater this commentary towards newer players, so you'll see me explain cards and hover over cards a bit more than I usually do. This is also a unique opportunity to watch me commentate knowing the hands of both players. Usually I only commentate from my point of view as I do not have access to my opponent's HQ or grip. But this will be different. So hopefully you enjoy this refreshing take on commentary. Finally, please do keep in mind that I am showcasing a random game from the online league. This likely involves players that are newer to the game, players who may not have necessarily grasped the finer points of high-level competitive netrunner play. So please go easy on them in the comment section. I'm not going to ramble on any longer. Let's get into the game. Alright, this matchup is CTM versus Alice. Two of the most well-performing decks for each side respectively this league so far. Let's see how they do. We'll be spectating both players and have both hands open. So this should be a unique watching experience, even for those of you who are used to my channel, because I typically only commentate on one side. Let's see. Barry, who is our CTM player here, takes a mulligan, and Enigma, who is our Alice player here, takes keeps the hand. Alrighty. Okay, so Barry has a pretty good opening hand. They have good assets, the DBS, the Bankers Group, and the AR Enhanced Security. I think this would be a pretty good turn, yes, to play exactly that. That's a very good opening turn. Some players might be tempted to play the Hedge Fund in their hand. The reason you don't really need that is because you have Commercial Bankers Group out in the open, which the runner is not likely to run. So the Bankers Group will make you enough money to score to play the Hedge Fund anyways. What you really want to do on turn 1 is to capitalize on the runner being afraid to run all 3 remotes, then go in for the AR Enhanced Security score. Now Barry does an interesting move here where they pitch Hedge Fund due to Alice's ability. Alice forces the co-op to trash a card from their hand. The co-op gets to choose the card. So Barry chose the trash Hedge Fund over the Seesaws, which is one of the win conditions in tagging the runner, and Archangel, which is their one piece of ice right now. The runner makes a very good guess and runs the agenda. A nice snipe right there. So even though this is good for the runner, the co-op doesn't like this at all, but the co-op's not out of this yet. They still have their Bankers Group, they still have the DBS, the Daily Business Show, that is in Server 1. So even though they did not have a very good first turn, they can certainly recuperate from this. Now, a Mining Accident comes out. This is a really nasty card that tips the balance in the runner's favor. Having one bad publicity means that everything is cheaper to trash from this point onwards. This is going to be quite a struggle against Alice. I think Alice got a very good opening turn and they have a lot more in the tank. As you can see, of course, the co-op doesn't know this since they can't see, but this Alice player does not actually have Breakers up. Their opening hand was full of Economy in the Dirty Laundries, the Mining Accident, and Career Fair into Liberated accounts, both of which are money cards. Alice has no draw, no breakers. So actually, the right thing for the co-op to do right here is actually to try to rush out behind End the Run Ice. Unfortunately, they are not finding End the Run Ice and they can't really rush out here. It is pretty difficult because they just don't have the ice or agendas for it, and they don't have the money just yet. Speaking of money, the Alice player is going to start contesting the board, trashing the Daily Business Show. They are very likely going to trash the Commercial Bankers Group here, and yes, this is where the bad publicity comes into play. They are able to do this and pay 1 less for the Daily Business Show and 1 less for the Commercial Bankers. The Bankers only cost 1 to trash, so this is really good for the runner. Now, if I were the co-op here, a really cool thing to do would be to play the Seesaws and trash this loaded 16 credit liberated account. Because the runner made a run last turn, they can land the Seesaws, which since they are now very poor, and then use the tag to trash the liberated account. This was a prime opportunity that Barry here missed, and this is going to be a big problem because they are going to concede the economy war to the runner. Giving the runner 16 credits for 4 clicks is a pretty big deal. Now the corp start setting up. They finally found a piece of ice in Data Raven, and this should really help them get back on their footing. However, this is not what they really want right now. Even though I said that you do want to rush out agendas early, unfortunately, without a board state, without any form of card draw or economy like the Daily Business Show or the Bankers Group, scoring is very expensive. Barry here has 6 credits. They can't afford to score an agenda and then res this Data Raven to protect it. So that's pretty bad. In the meantime, the runner is gaining pretty good ground. They've gotten money from Liberator accounts, allowing them to trash this pack campaign even before it's res, clear the tag, and be in good credit standing. Barry here draws another Daily Business Show, which is a very nice thing to throw out. And they're also going to throw out a quantum predictive model to try to score. If I were them, I might consider putting the Daily Business Show in the Data Raven remote, because as it stands right now, these assets are not that difficult to trash for the runner. They have good early economy, they have 1 bad publicity. This Daily Business Show is going to go down this turn or next turn. So I'm not liking the corp's position right now, but maybe they will draw into an ice that can protect the Daily Business Show. Defending your assets is of the essence against an aggressive runner like Alice, who is able to punish you with bad publicity and who has a pretty good economy engine. We also see a hacktivist meeting here. This is a really nasty current that further subdues the corp, as it makes the Daily Business Show reds very unpalatable. So they're going to run the Daily Business Show here. Alright, they're going to see it. They're probably going to trash it here because it's a pretty high value target. So again, this is why I would have preferred putting the Business Show under the Raven instead. At least force the runner through a piece of ice if they want to get at the asset. Now, the corp draws into the Mumbat Virtual Tour, gets it out in the open. This is, I guess, one good thing about laying stuff out in the open, is that the runner sees it, they're like, okay, I have to run it. It's probably a Bankers Group, but then they're forced to trash it, which is really funny. The runner doesn't bite this time, surprisingly, so the Virtual Tour is just left to sit there. In the meantime, you notice Barry has slowly advanced this quantum predictive model and finally got 1 point off the board. But this is generally not very good. You want the runner to be scoring these agendas for you by taking a tag from the Data Raven and then accessing the quantum predictive model, which states that if the runner is tagged when it's scored, it goes into the corp score area instead. By manually advancing it, Barry just spent 3 clicks and 3 credits to get an agenda that's worth 1 point. That's not the best trade. They're still 6 whole points away from winning. A pretty tall ask at this point in the game. Now, over back to Alice. Alice has drawn some pretty good cards. Unfortunately, no economy, but they make up for that by playing a hacktivist meeting, which makes assets pretty unpalatable to res, but they also then play a mining accident, threatening a second bad publicity. Taking bad publicity here, Barry does that. This is going to cause them a lot of trouble down the road. CTM is not very good when it doesn't have its assets up. You will notice that Barry's going to be clicking for credits a lot this game, and if you're spending clicks to click for credits, you are not doing it very efficiently. The runner's way more efficient than you. They will probably win in the long haul, as CTM tends to be a tempo deck, as I explained in my preparation video. So yeah, with 2 bad publicity, it's going to be immensely difficult for CTM to gain any tempo this game. So we are going to see the Daily Business Show finally chucked under the Data Raven. I like this play. The hacktivist meeting makes it very difficult though. CTM will be forced to trash a card from the hand to res this Daily Business Show. Not exactly something you want to do. Because the hacktivist trash is random. Unlike the Alice trash, which the corp can choose, the hacktivist is completely random if you res an asset or an upgrade. So if it snipes, say, the only exchange of information in the corp's hand, it could be very difficult for them to find another one. So that is a nasty downside with it. Speaking of things that protect your assets, pop-up window is an amazing piece of ice that the corp should try to play as soon as possible. Get it out on the table and have it start doing some work. This is economy, and I guess a mark of good players is how they are able to leverage on such conditional economy cards. Pop-up only generates you money if the runner is running repeatedly through it. So you really want to put pop-up in a place where the runner is forced to repeatedly run through it. Now, so yeah, it's quite interesting that Barry chose not to res the daily business show here. I think this is not really good if you are dedicating a defended remote to it. I guess there is some merit in waiting for the hacktivist meeting to erode before resing the daily business show, but from what I'm seeing right now, I don't think Barry's in a position to get rid of the hacktivist meeting. It's a current, which means that you can't get rid of it unless you play a current of your own or you score an agenda. Now, CTM does not have an agenda of its own. This particular deck that I made does not have a current. So the only thing you can do is to score an agenda, and it's going to be pretty difficult. Barry's on 5 credits. So again, this credit level is really causing a lot of problems. Now, one thing Barry is doing right though is setting up a scoring remote. I like this play here. Pop up into Enigma looks good, but speaking of Enigma, Enigma has the solution to Enigma with the Black Orchestra and the bin. 2 Black Orchestras in fact, so challenging this remote is not going to be that difficult. But again, Barry has found a very wonderful solution here. Place a red herrings on the table, so this red herrings does 2 things. You will notice that one possible play for Barry there was to throw the red herrings and the project build in the remote and try to score it right there and then. Instead, they play the red herrings only. I like this play. I actually like this play because now the runner is compelled to run through the server. And even if they get to the bottom, which they can easily do, it's only a pop-up window into Enigma, they'll find that it's just a red herrings. They've wasted their entire turn running. And if they trash the red herrings, they'll have to take a tag from CTM's ability. So I like this play. They're baiting a run into the remote, and there's not much to be had out of it. In fact, it could bring them low on credits so that the corp can then put Project Build in there the next turn. Let's see what the runner does here. So they have quite a few options. Alice has been drawing a lot, and as such they have quite a few tools at their disposal. They could challenge the remote. They definitely have enough credits. Right now they're worried about not being able to break a barrier. IP block is a very scary barrier, and they have no paperclip in their bin, which is their fractor. Alternatively, they could go for central pressure. A legwork would fetch a ton of agendas here. Or they could go for R&D in this case, using the indexing. Now, R&D isn't the most well-defended server. It's an Archangel, which adds an installed card to the runner's hand. There are not that many installed cards, so indexing's not gonna do... Archangel's not gonna do much here. And it would be a really amazing call if Enigma follows it up with an indexing, which CTM cannot really stop. Now, Pad Campaign is trash from R&D. This I find a bit curious. I don't think they... Oh, no, it's fine because they have 2 bad publicity, so the Pad Campaign trash was very cheap. They ran R&D twice and then are now going to challenge the remote. The pop-up window is going to start making money. As I said, this is what you want to be doing. Barry positioned his pop-up window pretty well here. And then we continue on into the Enigma, where the runner is forced to pay 3 to install the Enigma, and another 3 to break it, only to find the red herrings at the end of the server. CTM's ability is still alive, so if they trash it here, they'll have to clear the tag with their last click. Let's see if they do that. Alright, they do. So they're now down to 4 credits. A very interesting play here would be to play Seesaws, land a tag, and then exchange the Quantum Predictive for an AR Enhanced Security, an agenda that actually does something in the score area, rather than the Quantum Predictive model, which does nothing, since, well, its ability doesn't do anything in the score area. I would have strongly considered doing that, given that Barry, for that very brief window, had a credit advantage over Enigma. So that's the beauty of Seesaws. If you have the credit advantage over your opponent, you can land the Seesaws and potentially do some tag punishment shenanigans like the exchange of information. That would have been really interesting, but they chose not to go for it. Instead, they're going to suffer yet another terrible accident, the third this game. Alice has drawn all three in quick succession, and this is going to cause a lot of problems. I think 3-bet publicity is nigh impossible to win against once you're at that point. So yes, Barry makes probably the correct call to pay the 5 credits for mining accident, but at this stage it might be too little too late. 2-bet publicity is overwhelming enough as it is. Alright, so very tricky things going on here. You'll also notice that Barry played the global food in the remote instead of the project build. This is a very interesting decision and could potentially be incredibly punishing for Alice if they choose to run this server right now. This is a very tempting prospect, but no, they go for the correct server. They go for the legwork instead. This legwork has a very high chance of fetching the build here. In retrospect, obviously Barry should put the build in the remote instead of the food, but hindsight is 2020. These are the mind games that you have to think about. Surprisingly, Barry doesn't res the IP block here. I find this rather interesting. The IP block certainly doesn't do much. It only taxes the runner for 1 credit because the trace 3 can be easily beaten by 2-bet publicity from the mining accident. So yeah, at this point, when ice breaking becomes really cheap, this is where CTM starts losing. When your IP blocks can't even tax the runner out, this is looking pretty bad. And now Archives, defended by a lowly pop-up window. Hey, at least it's doing something there. Alright, so pop-up window fires, and once again, for a brief moment, the Corp has the credit advantage over the runner. They can choose to fire the Seesaws exchange here, and they have a grand total of 2 choices for that. But no, Barry's not going for the Seesaws, they are going for the Bankers instead. At this point, you are probably grasping at straws. This Bankers isn't very taxing to trash at all. They just need to spend 2 clicks and 2 credits to clear the tag. Trashing the Bankers is completely free thanks to the bad publicity. Not to mention that the Hacktivist is still up, so rezzing that Bankers is going to be rather detrimental to the Corp here. Again, another reason why I would prefer to get rid of these combo cards from my hand ASAP. If Barry had exchanged the Quantum Predictive for the AR Enhanced Security earlier, things could be quite different, because this Bankers would now land 2 tags on the runner instead of 1, and that is a big difference. So yeah, I think swapping the Quantum Predictive for the AR Enhanced Security would have done a lot to help the Corp in the long run, simply because it basically turns the tables around, literally, and mitigates the 2-bad publicity that the Corp already has. As a tempo deck, a tempo deck means, as a tempo deck, you want to, punish the runner by draining their resources turn after turn after turn by getting as many of your ability fires as possible. And if you can compound that with AR Enhanced Security, all the more better. So AR Enhanced Security is a very good way to increase your decrease your opponent's tempo. And bad publicity is an awesome way for the runner to gain tempo. Right now, we can see that tempo is heavily in the runner's favor, even though they are poor. And they are flooded with a bunch of cards they can't really use, with 1 click remaining. Well, you take some, you lose some. I guess that's one of the downsides to playing Inject on 3rd click. Well, enough said about the Corp. I think we should now turn our focus to the runner. How are they doing? They have literally 1 card installed. They don't really have a board state set up. They've played all the economy early, and now they are suffering, not being able to find much money. Not much is going their way, or so it seems. The 2-bad publicity will be their main economy engine throughout this entire game. By the way, I think if you... I guess you don't rest the Bankers here. The Hacktivist is causing a lot of problems. So for the runner, they have a few tools to deal with ice, which is actually fairly important, and those are good keeps. I think Alice made the correct play. these are the cards to trash because you don't really need them. I think the Earthrise might not be that good here. I don't think you need to dig through that deep through your deck, and the 4 install cost of the Earthrise is very significant at this stage where you are very low on money. Consider that both two career fairs are in the bin. It's unlikely that you draw the last one, so Earthrise is probably going to be installed for the full cost. That's very expensive. Now the indexing goes through, and yep, Alice guessed correctly. The ice here is pretty irrelevant at this point. I think raising the Archangel here isn't the worst idea. Bouncing the Black Orchestra back to hand is kind of a tempo hit. But yeah, it doesn't really do much at the end of the day. So the corp just lets the runner through and the indexing fires. Now, I think there's a lot for the runner to take here. But they have to be really careful. Because if there's a global food in the top 5 cards of the indexing, they might be hesitant to steal it because they might face a seesaws into exchange of information after this. Or they could have whiffed, as Enigma mentioned. So it looks like they found no agendas at all, so they're just going to play Inject here. So I think in this scenario, I would have preferred for the runner to play Inject before doing the indexing. Because this way they would have drawn into the Dirty Laundry, and perhaps a different decision would have been made here. So if I play Inject first click, I think a much nicer line of play for me would be to then play Dirty Laundry followed by installing Liberator accounts and clicking it. So that way I can get my economy up, then I can indexing with greater ease on the following turn. I would have held I would have held on to the indexing for another turn or so. But no matter, all is good. I think they can still play the Dirty Laundry here into one of the remote servers. They just have to be careful to not end on too few credits, because if they install Liberator accounts last click like they did last time, they could be in for a nasty surprise with that seesaws. Alright, so Dirty Laundry into the pop-up window is a good idea. Although hitting one of the remote servers isn't the worst idea. And the corp trashes seesaws. That's an interesting decision. We'll see if that comes back to bite them later. So after the Dirty Laundry, they're going to play the Earthrise Hotel. I don't really agree with this decision, because if you install the Liberator account first, you will be able to generate money quickly, and that allows you to install the Earthrise easily later on. Whereas in this case, if now you're putting yourself down to 2 credits, you're unable to play your economy card that costs 6 to play. So that's going to be a really nasty prospect that the runner now faces. They only have 2 credits. They can't get rid of any of the cards from their hand. This looks really bad. Now, they could play the Stim Hack, go through the remote, fetch the global food. That's certainly possible. But what's their plan after that? Right? They're stuck on 2 credits, so they'll be clicking for credits for sure in the next couple of turns. And that's something you don't really want to do as the runner. So yeah, managing the order of your installs is very important. Do you install card draw first or money first? Oftentimes, it depends on the game. In this case, I would definitely have preferred the Liberated account install first. Alright, so yep, as we mentioned, a Stim Hack goes through into that remote. Now, you look at this remote and you're like, well, Stim Hack. Not going to do them a lot, but you have to realize that the ability to trash this upgrade here for essentially free and be able to beat the CTM trace is quite a big deal. And this is why the Stim Hack here was a very nice play. Interestingly, the corp chose not to res the red herrings here for fear of hacktivist meeting. That is probably the right call. This would have... Actually, I don't know about that. Yeah, I guess it's the right call if the corp is looking to then land a seesaws exchange of information. So yes, it's quite obvious at this point that Barry is basically laser focused in getting the seesaws exchange going for the QPM into the global food. And it seems like they're going to get it off no matter what, which is really good for them. Unfortunately for them, this is not going to win them the game, as you see the seesaws land here, and the exchange is going to come soon. The problem with doing this is that while it puts you closer to winning the game, it does not put you closer to getting the other 4 points at all that you need to win the game. And that's the biggest problem with this. Um, it's good in the short term, but it does nothing in the long haul, where the runner will probably still eventually have the lock. So, back here we are going to watch the exchange happen. Now, Barry will have one click at the end of this turn, and it might be good for them to trash the Earthrise Hotel here. The Atlas player still has 20 cards to work through from the deck, and yes, they do take the chance to trash the Earthrise. I like this play from Barry, and I think this was a very good use of their turn. Now, as you look on Enigma's side, they have this Liberator accounts they can't really play. Again, this is why playing the economy card first was more important. And this is compounded by the fact that they can't possibly play the Liberated without clearing the tag, because the runner will simply trash their Liberated account. So what happens here is that the runner is basically forced to clear the tag right now before they can store the Liberated, which puts them down to a very low credit level. Oh, okay, the runner's playing risky here, taking 4 credits on their turn. Alright, so Barry takes this chance to money up, and now I guess this was a pretty good move. I completely forgot if there's close accounts in this corp deck here, but assuming there isn't, this was a pretty good play, because you can then play Liberator accounts, take a bunch of money, and use your newfound money to clear tags. And that's exactly what Enigma does here. Take a bunch of money, clear tags. Now they have money going, and they found their paperclip. So now they are out of the danger zone, and they should be able to cruise control to a victory. Let's see if Barry has any other tricks up their sleeves. They are about to bluff an agenda in that remote. It's a Mumbat Virtual Tour. Alright, they're also going to install a server 10 here. That's team sponsorship. Could be relevant for recurring a vital asset from the bin or a vital upgrade. We'll see what happens here. Enigma has to still be worried about the threat of a second AR enhanced security or a project build, so they have to start checking every remote. They're gonna see the team sponsorship here, and that's probably not something they need to trash at this point. We'll see if they do so though. The thing is, they can definitely afford to trash it, given that they still have a lot of money on the Liberated accounts. However, this will more or less take away their ability to contest server 8, which could or could not contain an agenda. So it seems like they are pretty interested in running this server 8. Nope, they're going to run archives instead and run through the pop-up window. Now here's a pretty important decision to make. Do you trash the pop-up or the toll booth from hand? Toll booth is going to be a very taxing piece of ice, but it's so expensive to res, so they trash the pop-up instead. Interesting decision. I agree with it for several reasons. Now, CTM has lost both of their C sources, and that's a very big loss. This means that they can no longer threaten a proactive tagging plan. They are not able to threaten the C source exchange combo, because this deck only runs 2 C sources and they're both in the bin. So an economy advantage is not that important. All they need now is to keep the runner out of servers. But as we see from the runner's hand, of course, being the all-seeing eye that we are, we know through our magic crystal ball that the runner has a David, and that breaks toll booth with relative ease. This is going to be quite a big problem for the corp. They're going to find that the toll booth is not going to be as effective as they would have liked. One very effective ice, however, is Data Raven, which they immediately slam. Oh, nope, they slam the wraparound on server instead and go for the Raven on R&D. That's a pretty good play. I like it. Possibly I would have preferred... I don't know. It's pretty hard to say what the corp should do at this point, because at this point it seems like it's going to be pretty difficult for them to score out unless the runner makes a mistake. We'll see if that happens though. At this point you can see that the toll booth is going to be near impossible to res. They are now back down to 8 credits, so this is why we've preferred to see them trash the toll booth, instead using the pop-up as a cheap piece of ice to gain some economy. But again, economy doesn't really matter. The economic advantage doesn't really matter at this point, because yeah, the corp is pretty is out of sea sources. Now, interestingly, the runner chooses to contest this server, even though the corp installed this Mumbat Virtual Tour a long time ago. You would have figured that if this were an important agenda, the corp would have scored it by now. So I think this run was a bit of a mistake. And, oh, right, they ended run on 4 credits, so they can't trash the Mumbat Virtual Tour. Ah, okay, I take that back. Yeah, that's a pretty smart play to do. I still don't really agree with the run, but I think it was a good chance to get rid of red herrings potentially, if that was one. Though I'm not sure if the deck has 3 red herrings. So, a final run onto archives means that the corp is finally forced to give up their toll booth, about time I should say. And now they're wiped clean of cards from the hand. They'll probably have to install whatever comes off the top of the deck right now, which happens to be a Data Raven, their 3rd one. This is a very valuable piece of ice. I would slap it down on server 5 right now if I am given the opportunity. Ooh, 15 minutes. Okay, this gets interesting. 15 minutes is an agenda that can trigger team sponsorship. So it's a pretty high value target here. Definitely something worth installing here. Alright, so here goes Barry. They are going to put the agenda in the remote and attempt to score it next turn, possibly get a team sponsorship trigger. This could be this is forward tempo. Being able to install a card for free from your bin at no cost of clicks or credits is quite a big deal. Of course, we must not forget that they have to res the team sponsorship, which means a hacktivist meeting trigger will happen, but being able to clear the current is going to be a huge benefit for the corp. Let's see if they are able to get this 15-minute score or if the runner steals it from them first. Alright, so now the runner shows interest in contesting this remote. Unfortunately for the corp, there's not much they can do. The runner is doing something really ingenious here. They are trying to manipulate their credit levels such that when they reach the bottom of the server, they will have fewer than 5 credits and thus are unable to trash the Mumbat Virtual Tour. This means that they won't have to get a CTM trigger and they won't have to lose 5 credits. So that's quite a big deal. Right, so Enigma gets all the way through and will be able to steal the 15 minutes without incurring the Mumbat Virtual Tour punishment. So this was very good for the runner. Of course, it's not the biggest loss to the corp because 15 minutes has this ability where you can reshuffle it back into the deck. So not the worst for either player, not the best either, but this was a good way to, again, sap some tempo from the runner. They started their turn with 5 or 6 credits, they're now down to 2 credits because of that run. This is what a tempo deck is all about, trying to sap tempos continuously from the runner. Alright, so back to the corp. They don't join to many useful cards, unfortunately. The deck's starting to run thin with most of the assets already in the bin. Let's look on the runner side. So the runner hasn't actually gotten a lot of economy this game. If you notice from the bin, something's missing. There are 3 short gambles in this deck. None of them played just yet. There are lots of gambles in the stack right now. Alice just drew one of them last turn and they are going to eagerly play it as soon as we get the chance. And yes, they've finally drawn into their economy. These are the cards they're looking for. Those are the droids. And now they can start pressuring R&D. Alice makes around the R&D, sees the Data Raven. I think they will jack out here. Not much reason to pursue a single access here, although I'm wrong clearly. Alice decides to get the MK Ultra installed while they're at it and takes the tag and gets through. The second card is an Archangel. The ice behind it is an Archangel. I think Alice won't be too happy when they actually see that. I would totally res it here. Because it's Barry, it's quite obvious what Barry is going for here. They're going to play CTM vertically instead of the typical horizontal CTM that you usually see, playing out lots of assets in different remotes. Barry is going for a more vertical style by stacking lots of expensive ice on R&D and the remote, trying to score out that way. So very interesting choice made by Barry. I think it's definitely a possible win condition, and yeah, better to play to your outs than to, you know, completely give up. So I like what Barry is doing here, and this Archangel is definitely going to pay off for them if the runner chooses to continue through this run. Alright, so with Data Raven, the runner chooses not to use MK Ultra to break it, which is a smart idea. MK Ultra, it takes 6 credits to break a 4 strength Data Raven when you can simply pay 3 credits for the trace. So here it is fairly obvious that you don't really want to use MK Ultra. The only situation where you want to use the MK Ultra is when you're going for the fort, in which case you need to break the subroutine on Data Raven with an icebreaker, or well, with something that breaks subroutines, in order to trigger the fort. But nope, it was a Project B on top of R&D that won Enigma the game instead. So well played by both sides. I know I've been rather critical throughout the entire game of both players' gameplay, and I do apologize if it does come off as that. I hope it doesn't detract from the fact that both players actually still played very well. The co-op player Barry, for example, they did a very good job early game in respecting the power of Alice Merchant, the disruptive power in being able to run archives and deplete their HQ, which is why they started shoring up their centrals, and yeah, that definitely stemmed the flow of agendas to the co-op area, to the runner area. Barry also managed to identify the important C-Source exchange combo in CTM and was able to pull it off this game. It's not that easy. They had to maintain those cards in hand without, you know, losing them to Alice Merchant, and they had to maintain a credit lead. Both things Barry did successfully. Props to him for that. But unfortunately, that wasn't enough to win the game. As you saw, it was pretty difficult for Barry to score the last 4 points this way, because the global food doesn't do anything in your score area either. That being said, I played pretty well with the remote setup. They just failed to get there, and very well played by Enigma to definitely avoid the Mumbat Virtual Tour on both times they ran server 8, as well as to keep the co-op at bay by checking the remotes. I can't express how difficult it is to be able to challenge the CTM remotes as the runner when you don't know what they have installed. It's easy for us to say that it's easy for us to say when the runner should have ran and when they shouldn't, because we have full knowledge of all the remotes, but this runner didn't, and they still played very well. So props to both of them. That was a pretty good game, and thanks for watching this this commentary. Hope you enjoyed it. Till next time, I'll see you. Goodbye.